Back with the best. Number 1 Baylor taking on number 3 Kansas. Baylor 1.5 favorites on a Big 12 record 23-game winning streak. Kansas, meanwhile, on an 11-game heater. Their last loss was to Baylor on January 11th. Both of these 1 seeds, according to our Jerry Palm. And there is why Kansas has made their case all season to be number 1. Udoka Azubuike throwing it down with 2 hands. Get used to that sight on Saturday. He had 13 points, 8 rebounds, 4 dunks in the first half. Davion Mitchell can rise and fire as well. Isaiah Moss here from the corner, going to get blocked by Freddie Gillespie. Baylor down 3 at the half. It's their largest halftime deficit at home this season. Great closeout right there. Baylor ending the half on a 6-0 run, getting their foot back into this one. We're going to bring some of that momentum into the second half, early second half. Devon Dotson misses a layup. Azubuike, as I said, climbing the ladder on Saturday. Kansas up 7, mid-second half, 8-point game. Marcus Garrett up to Azubuike, one-ups himself. Kansas up 10 at that point. Azubuike finished with 23 and 19, but Baylor looking to remain undefeated in Big 12 play with defensive effort like that. Davion Mitchell with the big block, ensuing Baylor possession. Off the inbound, Freddie Gillespie knocks down the jumper from the charity strike. Baylor down just 3, Gillespie 10 and 7 on the afternoon. Under 30 seconds now. Baylor down 4. Udoka Azubuike turns the ball over. Jared Butler drives, dishes. Mark Vital misses, but it gets kicked out inadvertently to Maceo Teague. Got it. Just like that, Baylor's down 1. Teague, 8 points. After returning from his wrist injury, Kansas takes the lead on free throws. So final seconds of regulation, down 3. Jared Butler's 3 at the buzzer. A chance to force overtime. Over-bettors with their eye on the total there, hoping for overtime as well, wouldn't get it. Kansas holds on to win 64-61, snapping Baylor's 23-game winning streak. Kansas now winners of 12 straight, the biggest coming in this matchup. It was billed as the biggest game of the college basketball season. It wasn't hyperbole. It lived up to said billing. Kansas now tied with Baylor atop the Big 12 standings after this massive win. They cover the 1.5, cash in on the money line, and the under comes through. The under's now 12 and 3 the last 15 times these two do it. Oh, it's a family affair. Everybody in the pool. Gary Parrish, Jerry Palm, and at the scene of the crime, our guy, Matt Norlander. Matt, I'm going to send it out to you there first. You took all of this in first person. The energy, the moments. What was it all like there as Kansas knocks off number 1 Baylor?
A wonderful environment here at the Farrell Center, or as we belovedly refer to it as on the Ion College Basketball Podcast, Terry Teagle Arena. Crowd came for it. This was the biggest ticket in the history of Baylor's men's basketball's program, and credit to Kansas for not only just winning the game, but controlling the game. Obviously a raucous environment, and with Baylor making that push in the second half, you kind of wondered if Baylor might be able to overcome Kansas, you know, arguably the best defense in college basketball, but that didn't happen. Udoka Azubuike, unquestionably, is the biggest story coming out of this game here. I just talked to him during his press conference there, and he'd even said, listen, I'm the kind of player that when I was younger, I was doubted. When I got into my early college years, because my game was limited, I was doubted, and now he is really coming into his own. With this 23-point, 19-rebound performance, yes, he moves into the conversation for first-team All-American. Devon Dotson, his teammate, is right there with him, and it's why Kansas is so dangerous, because it's got the best 1-2 combo, inside out, outside in, however you want to refer to it. This is the reason why KU has rated as the number 1 team at KenPom in recent weeks, and from an efficiency margin standpoint will remain that way. From a resume standpoint, as Jerry Palm has said, this is now the best team in college basketball. Sits in the driver's seat with the number 1 overall seed. So an impressive road victory. Obviously, these teams have split with the other winning on each other's home floor, and so it makes for a compelling race to the end of the Big 12 season. It makes for a compelling race when we get to the NCAA tournament. And I think ultimately, even though it wasn't extremely high scoring, guys, I still do believe that defensively these teams really showed why they both need to be on these short lists, right there with maybe Gonzaga, maybe San Diego State, whoever else you want to put in that conversation to be national title frontrunners, because defensively they are so impressive, and it goes just beyond, say, Mark Vital for Baylor and Udoka Azubuike for Kansas. Those guys lead it, but overall, on the whole, Baylor and Kansas just elite defensively this season, and that's not going away when we get to March.
Elite defensively, and as you said, said, on the offensive done. Azubuike, Dotson getting it done. The first time these two met in Kansas's loss, Azubuike and Dotson combined for 15 points. Azubuike alone had 23. They combined for 34 just moments ago as Kansas takes down #1 Baylor. Jerry, let's go to you here. When we're looking at how this projects forward, we're looking at what you have as 2 1 seeds right now. But with this win, does this swap the overall 1 seed in favor of Kansas?
Yes, it does. Kansas will be the overall #1 seed in my bracket on Monday morning, and Baylor will just drop to #2. And I think as long as these two teams lose only to each other, they're the top 2 teams, and it's unassailable. They've really dominated college basketball this season, and while Gonzaga and San Diego State have also had fantastic seasons, and like Matt pointed out, legitimate national championship contenders, these two teams have stacked quality wins because of their schedules and their ability to do so, and have very few flaws in their resumes. So these two are going to be 1 and 2 as long as they don't lose to someone else between now and that Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, got a feeling that these two are going to meet again in the Big 12 championship game, possibly in Atlanta after that. Gary, let's go over to you now. This is a complete basketball team in the Kansas Jayhawks. Not to say that the Baylor Bears are not, but when you look at Kansas top to bottom and what Udoka Azubuike did today, is this the most complete team in your belief in college basketball right now?
I do think so. Now, I've had Gonzaga ranked #1 in the top 25 and 1 at CBSSports.com, I believe for 55 consecutive days, because all Gonzaga can do is schedule as aggressively as possible in the non-league portion of its schedule and then play that schedule. And it did that. And when it was completed with that schedule, the AP poll, coaches poll, and the top 25 and 1 had Gonzaga ranked #1. And all Gonzaga's done since then is win almost every game by double digits. Simply put, I've decided not to punish them based on their league affiliation. But that said, I do think Kansas is probably, on paper, the best team in the country, the team best equipped to win a national championship. Like Norlander said, they're great at the lead guard position. They're great in the middle. They've got multiple shooters, and they are shooting it well enough from three-point range to win a national championship. They're not as great as last season's Virginia or 2 seasons ago Villanova, but they do shoot it from three-point range about as well as the first Villanova championship team under Jay Wright and under Roy Williams' last national championship team at North Carolina. They got a Hall of Fame coach, obviously, in Bill Self. So simply put, they check every box. If I had to pick a probable national champion today, I would pick the Kansas Jayhawks.
I'm right there with you. Put it in pen on my bracket. As we do look at the remaining boxes to check, Gary, it's Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU, and Texas Tech. We are going to head back out to Matt Norlander right now, standing by with the winning coach himself, Bill Self.
All right, Bill, an incredible win. You guys threw some new action with the screen stuff in the middle there. How big was that in terms of getting Doak loose on both ends of the floor, and how key was that to getting a win here against Baylor on the road?
Getting Doak more touches where he can catch the ball above the rim is obviously important for us, because we don't score the ball as easily at 5 feet or 7 feet like some other guys do. So he needs to get an angle, and we were able to do that. So that was big, but they're so good defensively and so sound, and they guard us so well the first time. We just figured we need to try some things much different than what we did the first time.
Baylor's almost never trailed in the second half this entire season. You guys got out early. How critical do you think it was to your team's psyche to get an edge early on? You made that 9-0 run, that kind of bounce back there, and you were able to keep them kind of at bay for the rest of the game.
Yeah, by no means did we control the game start to finish, but we did control it because we played with the lead a little bit. When they beat us at our place, they controlled the game more at our place than we did than we did here. But it's such a difference when you get to 5, you push it back to 9 or 11, and up until the very end, we were able to do that. So that was big. We made enough good plays offensively when that looked like the momentum could turn, that kind of kept them at arm's length.
Since you've been at Kansas, how many duos have you had that would be comparable in terms of style, effectiveness, and mismatch potential as Devon and Udoka have? I mean, is there even a close second in the history since you've been there? because they're not. You got Doku's big and down low. He's been able to change his game in Dotson. He can be a blur, but he's also really responsible. So are they among the best you've ever had, and just in terms of a pure 1-2 attack?
Yeah, absolutely. They're terrific. Yeah. Now you're looking at Sharon Collins and Cole Aldridge, or Mario Chalmers and Darrell Arthur, or we've had some pretty good guys and pretty good twosomes. I don't know that we've relied on two guys more than what we rely on those two, though. I mean, they have help, but they're not getting near as much offensive help as what I think we're capable of giving them. So that puts a lot of pressure on them, and they, Dot, when he makes shots, makes 6 through last game, and what he get 29 or whatever, and today, he obviously didn't get as many looks and didn't make as many shots. But to your point, he is so fast, and he puts pressure on defense, and even though he didn't have a great offensive game, you look at the stat sheet, and he still gets his 13 or 14 and plays 40 minutes.
All right, Bill Self, Kansas gets a big-time win on the road in the driver's seat for the #1 overall seed. Bill, thanks for joining us on CBS Sports HQ.
Thank you. See you, Matt.
All right, fantastic stuff from Matt Norlander. Got Bill Self just moments after the biggest win of the season, one of the biggest of his storied tenure at Kansas, taking down #1 Baylor on the road. Here's a look at the remaining games for Kansas. Oklahoma State. Circle that next one. Kansas State, February 29th, a rematch of the one that didn't end in fisticuffs, but had fisticuffs involved. TCU on March 4th, and finishing it off with maybe a sneaky one there against Texas Tech. We're going to head back out to Matt Norlander now for reaction after just talking with Bill Self. Matt, so much can be said about Kansas and what they've done this season on the court. In the midst of what's happening off court, they are under the microscope of the NCAA right now. They do have a midseason fight with K-State. Put into words the job that Bill Self has done in refocusing his team on the task at hand.
It is one of the more impressive jobs that Bill Self has done, and you don't say that lightly, because every single season, just about, since he's been there, Kansas has been a 1-seed caliber kind of program here. Now, some of the stuff that they are dealing with is absolutely self-inflicted. Let me be absolutely clear on that. But Kansas has not lost since it took the home L to Baylor, and since then we had the infamous K-State fight. Silvio De Sousa has not returned from suspension there, will in a couple of games here, and yet when you look up, it is remarkable. If you put other programs in the same position Kansas has been in, I just don't believe any of them, or almost any of them, would be in the same spot that Self has put this team in right now. Now, a lot of it goes a long way to Devon Dotson, Udoka Azubuike being two of the 6 or 7 best players in the sport. I mean, that's where we are, and that is not a huge shock. In the preseason at CBSSports.com, Kansas was the only team that had 2 players on our preseason top 15 for All-American consideration, and it was Azubuike and Dotson. So they have played above expectation or just about at it. But yes, on the whole here, this has been an incredibly impressive coaching job, and you can't deny that it's happening. And we're going to hear more about this when we get to March here, when the NCAA tournament brings a much higher profile, even more attention to this Kansas program into college basketball. On the whole, Joe, the NCAA and its sanctions are going to be coming. They could be into effect for next season. We could have a very kind of different situation with Kansas a year from now. You could have Kansas maybe facing a postseason ban. You could have Bill Self facing a 15-20, if not a full season postseason ban himself. So that stuff is coming down the road. Doesn't affect this team directly right now, and what they've done has been impressive, and now sitting with the best resume in college basketball, and according to multiple predictive metrics, has been sitting as the #1 team in the sport for a few weeks now.
The only thing they face tonight is a reason to celebrate after taking down #1 in Baylor. Jerry, I want to talk Big 12 on the whole here, because Kansas and Baylor obviously in 13-1 in a dead heat atop the conference. But when you look at the rest of the conference, not the back end, but those following, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Oklahoma, best case scenario, how many Big 12 teams do you see in a down year making it into the postseason?
Well, the best case scenario is most likely those 5, unless Texas all of a sudden turns it on and makes a run. But I don't even think of Texas as a bubble team right now. So, Texas is going to have to pick off some of the top 3, which are, Kansas and Baylor, and then West Virginia as well as a top 25 caliber team. Texas Tech's resume is not as good as its rankings have been this season. And Oklahoma, kind of the same. Those are really more middle of the bracket kind of teams that would have to fall off down the stretch of this season to miss the tournament entirely. But really, after those 5, there aren't a lot of promising prospects for a 6th team in the field from the Big 12 this year.
Be interesting to see who makes it in. Gary Parrish, you get the last word here. Thank you, all of you guys, for wrapping this up, putting some great perspective on a fantastic game between Baylor and Kansas. But Gary, your final word here. What is your lasting image of this matchup? What are you going to take away when you think of Kansas versus Baylor when it was 3 versus 1? And looking back at it at the end of the season, what'd you learn today?
I didn't learn much as what I thought was confirmed. These are 2 of the best basketball teams in the country. I'm with Jerry. They should both still be #1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. And honestly, this is very rare in college basketball, but I won't be surprised if we watch them play 4 times in this season. Once more in the Big 12 tournament, and then once more in the NCAA tournament, perhaps in the Final Four or even a national championship game. Neither team, even the losing team, should feel embarrassed about what happened in this one. They both competed at a high level. They took punches from each other, and if you're putting together a short list of national championship contenders, you've got to have Kansas and Baylor both on that list.
A certified 3-headed monster. Gary Parrish, Matt Norlander, and Jerry Palm weighing in as #3 Baylor, #3 Kansas takes down #1 Baylor. Fellas, we appreciate the time. All right, here's a look inside this matchup. What a game it was. Baylor, program record, 23-game winning streak. That's a Big 12 record as well, snapped at the hands of Kansas. Kansas, meanwhile, their 12th consecutive win, their last loss coming against Baylor back on January 11th. Hottest team going right now, and if you look at that remaining schedule, barring a misstep, they're going to continue that streak, maybe to 16 headed into the postseason. It's their first win over a #1 team since November 2016. First time doing it on the road since the mid-50s. These teams now tied atop the Big 12.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.